I read somewhere that a good way to approach an uncomfortable situation is with a joke. So, how do you know when there's a vegan in the room? Somebody else tells you. I always said to myself that I'd never need to watch any of these videos that show you animals suffering and animals being killed, because in my mind I already knew what was happening, and what was it going to help seeing this? But lately people have been asking me for advice and for more information, and even friends who've turned vegetarian, they want some more info. They want help on how they can try and cut dairy out of their diets, and cheese and eggs and all those kind of things. And for these guys I'd go and say, go watch Earthlings. Now how can I recommend that when I myself haven't watched it? A few days ago I read this quote which has really stuck with me. It's by the writer Leo Tolstoy, and I'm going to have to read it because it's quite long, but it goes like this. When the suffering of another creature causes you to feel pain, do not submit to the initial desire to flee from the suffering one, but on the contrary, come closer, as close as you can to him who suffers, and try to help him. Now there's no way that I can help those animals who have suffered and gone through those ordeals, but the least I can do is bear witness to what they've been through and at least try help in some way to stop this happening in the future. And the best way that I can do that right now is by watching these documentaries that have been made showing how these animals suffer and what they go through, just so that we can get a little bit of food on our plate. So there were two documentaries which I knew I needed to watch, and which a lot of people have been talking about. These documentaries show the day-to-day practices of the largest industries in the world which rely on animals. It's all undercover footage and it's graphic, it's sickening, but it's what happens every single minute all over the world. The first one, obviously Earthlings, also known as the vegan maker, simply because of the brutality that you see and the suffering that is shown to you on screen. And the second one is In the Land of Hope and Glory, which was created by vegan activists Ed Winters and Luna Woods. Some of you might know Ed Winters as Earthling Ed on YouTube as well, who does amazing stuff for animal rights. These guys went and created this movie because so many people who they'd speak to in the streets would say, yes, you're showing me this terrible footage, but this doesn't happen in the UK. I eat free-range meat, or I have free-range eggs, or whatever it is. They set out to show people what really happens in the UK.
To begin to understand the hidden truth about UK farming, we must be willing to look behind the facade that these companies have fought so hard to maintain and open our eyes to the truth. Be aware, the government and the animal agriculture industries fight to keep the content of the following film hidden from your view. The footage you're about to see is not from isolated cases. These facilities supply animal products that are labelled free-range, organic, high welfare, Red Tractor approved and RSPCA approved. The footage you're about to see is the reality of UK farming. In the UK alone, we slaughter around 1 billion land animals every year for meat, dairy and eggs.
It took me a few days to build up the courage to watch it. I waited for my girlfriend to go to bed, who's also on a plant-based diet. She just can't deal with seeing these kind of things. So I waited for her to go up to bed and switched on the TV and waited for it to load, and I sat there with my heart beating, thinking, you know, how am I going to be after this, and what is awaiting me? In the Land of Hope and Glory covers cows, pigs and birds, and they show you the whole life that these animals live, what they go through from birth to death. You see disgusting things that you wonder, how could we let this happen? I got through the 40 odd minutes of it. Yes, I was angry, and exactly what I thought I was going to see, I saw, but in a way I also felt numb, which was strange, but it was hard to get through, but I'm glad I watched it. I think it was the next day after that, or maybe 2 days later, and I thought, I need to give Earthlings a watch too. I can't keep telling people to now go and watch in the Land of Hope and Glory and Earthlings if I haven't seen the Earthlings. And again, I waited for my girlfriend to go to bed, switched it on nervously. It's about 10 years older than in the Land of Hope and Glory, but it covers the same things plus pets, circuses, sea life, and the worst for me, medical experiments, which has left such disturbing images in my head. Earthling spends a lot less time on each scene, whereas in the Land of Hope and Glory spends a lot longer on each subject, if you want to call it that. And it's much harder to see because Earthlings is shocking, but the images displayed quickly and they've moved on to something else. But in the Land of Hope and Glory just really shows you suffering. So you kind of see the same things in both of these documentaries. You see how baby calves are taken from their mothers just after birth and how mothers cry for their children. You see these bonds that these animals have with each other, how they crave love and friendship, and how we've taken this all away from them. You see baby piglets being castrated and their ears chopped off and their tails cut off and their teeth pulled out, all without anything to numb the pain. And a lot of people go and say that this is not the norm. What they're showing you is extreme and doesn't happen every day. And the issue is that this is what happens every day. That is how that bacon gets to your plate. And not only do you see how these animals live and the way they're killed, but also just how they're treated by the people who work with these animals all day. I don't feel anger towards these people because they've become so desensitized to it, and obviously something flips in your head. There's a switch that just goes off, I think, when you see so much pain and suffering every day that you become a part of it. I feel sad for these people that go through it, for the people who work there. It's not a place that I think anybody would ever want to be. One of the saddest things for me was seeing that in this 10-year period between Earthlings and in the Land of Hope and Glory, nothing really has changed. Things are still the same. We're still killing animals, billions of them, every year, for no real reason. Now, these are both brilliant films that I wish were never made, but they have to be seen. It's hard enough to stomach watching this, but can you imagine being on the other side, being on the receiving end of this? If you put yourself in the animal's shoes, it'll change the way you look at man forever. Now, after you watch these documentaries, they don't just disappear, you think about them a lot. Something that popped up in my head was an experience that I had a few weeks ago where I was at a friend's birthday party who, him and his girlfriend had just gone vegetarian after they'd watched What the Health. Obviously their friends all had a lot of questions and jokes, as it happens. One of their friends was asking them about vegetarianism, and somehow the topic of these kind of documentaries popped up. And one of the guys said, no, I could never watch that because if I did, I'd never be able to eat meat again. Now that stuck with me since then, because how can we have such a disconnect where we know what's going on, we know how terrible things are, yet we still subject these animals to this cruelty. But if we don't see it, it's okay. We'll ignore it and it's fine. So it just got me thinking that as a meat eater, you need to watch these documentaries. You need to see where your food is coming from. You owe it to the animals to bear witness to the life of pain and suffering that you are paying for, so that you can have a few minutes of joy when you're eating a meal. A life of pain for a few minutes of pleasure. How does that sit right with anyone? I have nothing against meat eaters. I was one a few months back. I love the taste and I'll never ever go and say that I didn't enjoy it. Once you know what goes on and once you can make that connection, you don't want to be a part of it anymore, and you'll do everything you can to help people understand that we don't need to cause this suffering. And one day we'll look back and say, how did we let this happen? I'll stick the link to Earthlings and the Land of Hope and Glory in the description box below. I'll also stick a link to Earthling Ed's channel. There's really good information out there. I just want to say thank you for watching if you have stuck around this long. This is a very different video to the ones I usually make, but it's been playing on my mind and I needed to get it off my chest. I don't have many people I can speak to about this, so you guys, you're going to be on the receiving end of it. So remember, Be nice to people and the animals. Bye.
It is ignorance that allows us to consume and purchase without considering the industries that we are supporting. And therefore, informing ourselves of the horrors our purchases perpetuate is not only a liberation for the animals, but indeed for ourselves as well. From this moment on, you can no longer say that you didn't know.